I think I've told you before that if something is in the Bible more than once, it must be important. The story of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, is in there 4 times. We know it is very important. There are a lot of other things that are in the Bible more than once. The 10 Commandments are in there twice, and they're referred to a 3rd time. So we know they were important, especially to the Jewish nation. The words rejoice always is used in many different places. And the words do not be afraid are in the Bible several times. So all of those are important. But there's another one that's in the Bible that you probably aren't as familiar with. It's actually in the Bible, depending on which version you use, which translation, 11 or 12 times. Chris is going to read one of them to us this morning, and it's on the front of your bulletin, Romans 2, verse 11.
There is no partiality with God.
God shows no partiality. In one form or another, and I'm going to read to you some of them in a few minutes, those very words are in the Bible 11 or 12 times, and several of them say, God shows no partiality and cannot take a bribe. And we're going to look at some of those. You'll find them in Deuteronomy, Job, Acts, and Ephesians, several other places. God shows no partiality. Some of the other translations of Romans 2:11 say, God does not show favoritism. But there is no favoritism with God. There is no respect of persons for God. And then the New King James Version, which is the version that I use, translation, for there is no partiality with God, or for God. God does not show partiality, even to his chosen people of Israel. We all know that Israel is God's chosen people, chosen nation, right? Yes. He did a lot for them throughout the Old Testament. Over and over, he had to save them from captivation and slavery. But he still shows no partiality to anyone. When it comes to God's judgment of human sin, we all come under the same standard. Sin is sin. Paul's words in Romans that Chris read probably infuriated the Jewish religious leaders because they didn't like Paul anyway. They didn't like a lot of the things that he said and things that he was teaching. Plus, the Jewish religious leaders held true to their sacred belief that they were protected from God's wrath because of the law that they were given and because of their special relationship with God as a nation. They thought they were protected. They thought that God would show partiality to them. But we're told many times in the Bible, God doesn't do that. And it says, God shows no partiality. Paul wrote the book of Romans in Greek. The Greek word for no is O-U. It's pronounced oo. The word oo in Greek means absolutely no exception. It doesn't mean just maybe every once in a while. It's an absolute negation of the word that follows. No whatsoever. No partiality is what Paul was writing in the book of Romans. You may have, I know you've all seen the Greco-Roman justice statue of the woman holding the scales with a sword in the other hand. She's blindfolded. 2 reasons that statue looks like it does. She is blindfolded so she cannot see the person that she's judging. She can't make a determination by their appearance. Her hands are full with a sword and the scales so she cannot receive a bribe before she makes a decision on a person. That's why that statue is made that way. Justice, as she is called, is unable to see what she's judging and unable to take a bribe from whomever or whatever she is judging. Judging not on the basis of appearance or taking bribes. In other words, justice cannot be bought, as that statue indicates from the way it was. And I don't know who actually drew that, or maybe, I'm sure there's statues in different places of that. I don't know of anyone that did one. But you've all seen it, right? You know what the statue that I'm talking about. God is righteously impartial. He's not looking at you on the outside. That's not what he's concerned about. He's looking at the conduct of your heart and your mind to see whether you're righteous or unrighteous. God does not give consideration to anyone because of their bloodline, their position, their wealth, their influence, their popularity, or their appearance. Doesn't mean to God. Doesn't mean anything to God. All of those things are external when God's looking at your heart. He even judges you by your motives. You know, when you do something, what's the motive behind it? We'll talk about that a little more in a few minutes. Those Jewish rabbis and religious leaders, they falsely taught that God did show partiality. As a matter of fact, they said, God will judge those Gentile dogs with one measure and judge the Jews with another. They were so wrong, because we're told many times that God doesn't do that. The ability to be impartial is one of God's great attributes, his love and his ability to be impartial. The scripture is recorded in several places. In Deuteronomy 10:17, it says, For the Lord your God is the God of gods and the Lord of lords, the great, the mighty, the awesome God, who does not show partiality nor take a bribe. In 2 Chronicles 19:7, the Lord our God will have no part in unrighteousness or partiality or the taking of a bribe. In Job 34:19, God shows no partiality to princes, nor regards the rich above the poor. Acts 10:34, Peter said, I most certainly understand now that God is not one to show partiality. And in Galatians 2:6, simply, God shows no partiality. And there are at least 5 other places in the Bible where you will find something very similar to those exact words. So this statement must have a lot of importance. I'm not saying it's more important than the life of Jesus or the other things that are in the Bible multiple times, but it must have a lot of importance. It's something you need to take heed of and be aware of. When they're saying that God cannot take a bribe, you think about what they're saying there, the different places it says there. You ever prayed, God, let me win the lottery and I'll give the church $1 million? That's a bribe, isn't it? God can't do that. God, make me well and I'll be in church every Sunday. That's a bribe, isn't it? Yes. God can't do that because God cannot take a bribe. It's sort of like you sitting in church. God, I need about $100. And then Chris comes by with the offering plate and there's a $100 bill laying on top. That's not an answer to prayer. Those are bribes. God doesn't listen to them. He listens to what's in your heart. But bribes, God can't take them. Partiality in Greek is 2 different words, prosopolencia and prosoprolentia, and they literally mean receiving or taking face. They literally mean determining who someone is simply by looking at their face. And that's what Paul is saying when he says God doesn't do that. It's simply by accepting a person by the way they look. But don't we do that so much? Oh. How you're going to treat somebody sometimes is determined simply by what they look at like when they first walk up to you. God doesn't do that. Giving someone special favor or respect simply because they're wearing an expensive suit or an expensive pair of shoes or something. God doesn't do that, but people do that, don't they? That's superficial. That's judging someone on a superficial level without consideration of their true merits, their true abilities, their true character. Sounds sort of like affirmative action, doesn't it? Y'all know what that is. Now, if I were to look around this room and make assumptions on some of us, simply based on how you look, I may come up with some interesting thoughts, right? Probably would, you know. We got some folks here that are a little rough. We got some that are refined. We got some that just burdened with care. We got some that don't have a care in the world. We got some with money. We got some with not so much. We got a couple with weird hairdos. But making assumptions on the way you look, me doing that, or any of us about the others in this room, would be showing partiality. And that would not be godly, would it? Receiving their face before you know their heart. But I think I know the heart of everyone here today. I really do. You're faithful. You've given beyond what we've asked you to do. Our scholarship, for example. You're here regularly. We've got over 20 people here today. A year and a half ago, we were lucky if we'd have 12 or 14. So, you know, you're faithful. You're here. Those things are the things that I should look at, and we all should look at in each other before determining what we think about each other. It makes no difference. I think one thing, I just mentioned the scholarship. Before the ceremony Monday morning, a lady came over to talk to us. And I don't know what church she goes to, but I bet you it's a lot bigger than ours. She said in their board meeting, we came up. Why can't they do something like Quitman Community Church is doing with a scholarship to help the graduates? We may have started something. That's something we can all be proud of. And that comes from here. I truly believe that. So, you know, they're talking about us. Mm-hmm. That's good. It doesn't matter what you're wearing or how you fix your hair or you know, even mine. You know, people tell me I wear a toupee. It's real. You know, it's if you get here late or you get here on time, if you participate all the time, what matters most is what's in your heart. And I think your hearts are full of the Spirit. I really do. We've proven it. Just look at what this little church has done. The Oriental custom of walking up to someone and bowing. You've seen that. Originally, that was started so the person you were meeting would judge you not by your face. And when they acknowledged hello, then you could lift your face and they could look at you. They've accepted you, then they look upon your face. The same thing with not being partial. God is just by being impartial because he cannot be partial and he cannot take a bribe. In our human courts of law, unfortunately, preference is given to the good-looking, the wealthy, the influential, even the tall. Tall people get a little more respect than people who are short. But God can't do that. God gives, listen to this, God gives no consideration to race, place, or face. None of those things. Nobody breaks his rules and gets away with it. No matter how powerful, how clever, or how wealthy they may be, or how networked they may be. They may think they got away with it, but they'll have to answer for it one day. We all know that. We have wealthy people that get away with things all the time. But the man upstairs knows, and they will have to answer for it one day. We're all judged by the same measure by God. Today, the rich, the educated, the well-traveled, the cultured, the prominent, the influential, the pleasing to look at, the strong, they're all sought after. And it seems like the poor and the ignorant and the weak and the despised are neglected. But it's not so with God. They mean as much to God as any of us or anyone else. The man with the most money in the world means the same to God as you do. You have just as much power with God as Elon Musk does. Even though Bill Gates is going to give away $180 billion, he means the same to God as you do. God sees all through the eyes of holiness and truth. He seeth not as man seeth. It's a terrifying thought that the great people of the earth think that they may have a higher position in heaven than any of us. But they won't. The ever humble, God-fearing soul is the one that's going to have the high position in heaven. We're told that. Don't worry about your outward appearance so much. Don't worry about what other people think about you. Worry about what is in your soul, in your mind, and in your heart, because that is what God looks at. He cannot be partial, and you should not be either. Amen.
Amen.